Welcome everybody to Sundry News for Thursday, August 13th. And I gave this warning on the sports episode, Sundry Sports. I may have to take a few weeks off while I catch my breath. It's really hard to breathe, just sitting still. So I may have to take a few weeks off till I get this extra weight off of my lungs and then resume. We'll see. We'll begin right now with the Daily Shapiro from this evening. Walsh. National media refused to cover murder of 5-year-old because it doesn't fit their racial narrative. And I didn't want to read about this on here, but there we have two stories about it. Hashtag say his name trends after media refused to report on murder of 5-year-old Cannon Hinnant. Cannon. That's a pretty cool name. We'll click on this one. Hopefully I won't cry. But I do have hormones, so we'll see. It is a story that shocks the conscience. Yeah, when I first saw the original headline about it, I had to reread it a couple of times just to make sure that I was sure of what I was reading. Even amid all of the death and atrocity in the world, it stands out and sticks with you. 5-year-old Cannon Hinnant was murdered in cold blood this past Sunday while out riding a bike in front of his father's house. The alleged killer, Darius Sessoms, was witnessed walking right up to the child, putting the gun to his head and pulling the trigger. An execution at point-blank range of a small child in front of his sisters who were also playing outside at the time. Sessoms initially fled the scene but was caught hours later. It is still not known why he allegedly committed this unspeakable atrocity, though at one level it doesn't matter. It is obviously a hideous evil, no matter the motivation, but you cannot help but ask why, especially when you realize that Sessoms was the next-door neighbor, and according to some witnesses he had just been over for dinner the night before. Whatever the answer to the why question, and I suspect we may never be given a coherent one, a beautiful and joyful child has been taken from the world, and the hole left in his absence will never be filled. That is one thing we know for sure. Here's another thing. The name Cannon Hinnant would be known across the country, and the name Darius Sessoms reviled the world over if the races were reversed. A story of a white man running up to a black child and executing him while he rode his bike would be front-page news for weeks. And there would almost certainly be rioting, spurred on in part by the incessant coverage. Instead, this story has gotten almost no coverage by the American national media. And when I say no coverage, I really mean no coverage. A visual here will be instructive. Your search, Cannon Hinnant, NewYorkTimes.com, did not match any news results. As of this morning, when I last checked, a search for Cannon Hinnant turned up 0 results with the New York Times, the Washington Post, Reuters, Yahoo News, NBC News, and ABC News. A search on CNN also turns up no results, though Google directs to an article by WRAL, a local news channel in North Carolina. APnews.com does have a little blurb about it, but you have to search to find it. It's a few sentences long and doesn't make any mention of the races of the people involved. In the next few days, some of these outlets may follow suit and put up their own blurbs if they feel some pressure for having ignored it. They may eventually cover the case and move on quickly, confident that they now have plausible deniability from the bias charge. Or maybe the blackout will continue, and none of these outlets will ever breathe a word about the case. Either way, the point is clear. This is not something they want to talk about. It is easy to anticipate the excuses that will be offered, and in some cases have already been offered for this outrageous disparity. It will be claimed that Cannon's execution is not as newsworthy because it was carried out by a civilian, not an agent of the state. But Ahmaud Arbery was killed by civilians, so was Trayvon Martin. They are both household names. It will be argued that this crime wasn't racially motivated, which is supposed to make it less relevant to the general public. But even if I agreed with the premise that non-racially motivated crimes aren't as relevant, and I don't, and even if it's true that Cannon's murder wasn't motivated by race, we don't know at this point. This argument still doesn't wash, because Michael Brown wasn't a racially motivated killing. Neither was Freddie Gray, or Eric Garner, or George Floyd, or really any of the famous homicide or alleged homicide cases from the last decade or so. None of them have had any proven link to racism, yet these victims are also household names. As a last-ditch attempt at obfuscation, it will be said that this crime isn't on video, thus making it less sensational and giving it less viral potential. It is sad if murder is looked at this way these days, as mere content to be consumed, but I concede that this is in fact how the media views the subject. But there was no video of Trayvon Martin. There was no video of Freddie Gray. And on the other side, I can think of plenty of sensational murders that were caught on video yet received very little coverage. Daniel Shaver, the white Arizona man killed by cops while on his knees begging for his life. Or how about Brittany Hill, the black Chicago mother gunned down by gang members while holding her baby? That is one of the most shocking crimes ever to be caught on camera, and yet the national media has said little about it. There simply is no explanation for the way these various incidents are treated, other than the most disgraceful and infuriating one. The national media is specifically interested in fueling a certain racial narrative, and they will make the intentional editorial decision to blacklist or downplay any story that interferes with it. Brittany Hill was ignored because she was killed by men with the wrong color skin. The silence around Canon Hinnant's name is even more deafening because he was killed by a man with the wrong color skin while also having the wrong color skin himself. We cannot be so jaded that we don't stop to really focus on this and consider it for the horror that it is. The national media doesn't care that Canon Hinnant died, and doesn't want you to care because he was white. It is that straightforward, that sick, that evil. There is no way around this. It is the truth. It is undeniable. The lesson that we take from this is crucial. We live in the information age, but information is not the same thing as knowledge. Even less is it perspective or wisdom. To be informed of something is merely to be made aware of certain events, often presented in bits and pieces. But we have confused information with knowledge, which means that the people giving us information also give us the illusion of knowledge. They sift through the events of modern society, pulling bits from here and bits from there, presenting pieces of different puzzles, but never the full picture. We take all of those pieces and imagine that we know something about the world. So if the national media only ever tell us about white-on-black killing, and only very carefully selected facts about those killings, and they flat out refuse to acknowledge the existence of black-on-white killing, or if they have to acknowledge it, only in a dismissive way, and certainly never in the context of any kind of larger trend, then we will begin to think that we know something, and what we know, we think, is that America is a racist country where black people are being hunted and killed, and the reverse almost never happens because white people are protected by their privilege and by the racist institutions that elevate them while oppressing everyone else. The narrative is all that matters. It is the only thing that is ever considered when deciding what not to cover, what to cover, and how to cover it, and that is why Canon Hinnant, despite being an innocent young child savagely cut down in broad daylight, will not be memorialized or mourned over the way that George Floyd was. But that does not change the fact that this is a great tragedy which commands our attention, no matter what CNN says, or more precisely doesn't say about it. Okay. From there, Senator Kennedy on Harris becoming Biden's VP pick. She's AOC without the bartending experience. Funny. Taiwan's president praises nation's relationship with U.S. under Trump. Never been closer. That's cool. Georgia store suggests $20 refundable deposit for white customers to shop there. I don't understand. Are the white people gonna come in and rob them? Is that a thing? I don't get it. There's some ads. Next. It's not moving. Next, we move on to the Daily Wire from this morning. Watch. Black Chicago residents interrupt BLM rally to support looters, demand BLM leave neighborhood. Oh, interrupt the BLM rally. The rally was to support looters. And the Black Chicago residents demand BLM leave neighborhood. Good for them. Curl, beware the secret Trump voters. They are out there despite what the polls say. Sanders supporters melt down over Harris pick. Democrats admit Harris wasn't first choice. Yeah, funny about the Sanders supporters thing, because Sanders himself is saying nice things about it. New doctor working with White House coronavirus team hits media and policymakers. Not appropriate policy. I'm a little curious about that. Let's see what that is. President Donald Trump announced during a press briefing on Tuesday that Scott Atlas, MD, was working with the White House coronavirus task force. Atlas later appeared on Fox News' Tucker Carlson Tonight, where he sounded off on the media and those setting public policy on how to deal with the COVID-19 panic. This is Scott Atlas, Trump said in announcing that Atlas was working with the White House. Scott is a very famous man who's also very highly respected, Stanford. And he's working with us and will be working with us on the coronavirus, and he has many great ideas, and he thinks what we've done is really good, and now we'll take it to a new level, and so it's great to have Scott working along with us. Atlas, who is the Robert Wesson Senior Fellow at Stanford University's Hoover Institution, addressed a variety of issues during his appearance on Fox News, including masks, fear generated by the media and policymakers, and what he says is inappropriate policy. The reality is there is certain data that is very controversial about masks, and I think the president said it correctly, honestly, when he said that in certain settings it's reasonable to wear a mask when you cannot social distance, and particularly if you're trying to protect at proximity to a high-risk individual, or you are a high-risk individual, Atlas said, and I think that's a rational policy. I don't want to make fun of people who say these other things, though, and the reality is it's stemming from a massive amount of fear, bordering on hysteria now, and this is a real problem because public policy is supposed to be taken into consideration, not just stopping COVID-19 at all costs, but understanding the impact of people on what you do and what you say, and I think that's been a failure in some of the people who've been speaking out on this. I'm not sure what he's actually saying here. Well, fear has its political uses, host Tucker Carlson said. That may explain it in part, but fear also has medical consequences, does it not? It's not good for people to be terrified, filled with anxiety, is it? Well, that's absolutely true, and it also, again, we need to live in a rational world, Atlas said. We need to show our children we use critical thinking. There's been a lot of sloppy thinking, as I've said many times, with people with very fancy CVs on this stuff. But reality is there are reasons to wear a mask, but generally speaking, driving around in your car alone and some of the other scenarios you outlined, it's not really rational to wear a mask. Okay. When asked about people who, for example, go outside and are exercising with no one around while wearing masks, Atlas said that there's no real good science on general population, widespread in all circumstances, wearing masks. That really has been sort of a failure of communication by people who are supposed to know better, Atlas said. When you look at an article that's published, you're not supposed to take the bottom line. You're actually supposed to look at it critically as a medical scientist and try to understand if you can actually draw the legitimate conclusion that the authors themselves are drawing. Much of the stuff on masks really is not very good science at all, and in fact, the WHO itself says there is no sound science for general population wearing masks. Aha. However, in certain settings, I think we can say it's reasonable to wear a mask, he continued. The goal of public policy, honestly, is twofold here. The public policy is directly for stopping the deaths by protecting the high-risk people and preventing hospital overcrowding while you safely reopen society. The public policy is absolutely not just stop COVID-19 cases at all costs, no matter what. That is not appropriate policy, and yet that seems to be what we have shifted to in the last few months. Atlas later added that the media has really highlighted and sensationalized things way out of proportion, but really it's up to people who are legitimate, credible medical scientists to step up and articulate the logic and common sense policy, because you can't just say it's all about the science and then say things that are contrary to the science, Atlas said in his final remarks during the interview. And here is the interview. And they also talked about Wisconsin telling officials to wear masks at home during Zoom calls. Yeah, that's retarded. And yes, I literally mean retarded. That's transcript. Probably some good stuff there. Okay. Going back. Walsh. Hit song encourages girls to degrade, objectify, and prostitute themselves. This is not empowerment. And seeing as that's a picture of Cardi B, looks like, I'm sure it's probably a Cardi B song, and that's not surprising. Moving on to The Daily Yahoo. Kamala Harris's VP bid brings outpouring of pride among Indian Americans, a growing force in Democratic politics. Sure. Excuse me. Senator Kamala Harris, born to an Indian mother and a Jamaican father, made history on Tuesday when former Vice President Joe Biden picked her as his running mate. Sure, whatever. Don't talk about all the negative, all the backlash that's been happening over that. Pro poker player was bound and sexually assaulted, lit on fire after motel meeting. Susie Zhao, the professional poker player whose charred remains were found in a remote Michigan park in July, was allegedly bound with zip ties and sexually assaulted before she was lit on fire until she died, after meeting with a convicted sex offender. Well, that's awful. Why did she meet with a convicted sex offender? Did she do that on purpose? Fox News host baselessly claims that something's going to happen to Joe Biden, forcing her colleague to walk her comment back. I have a sense that something's going to happen before the election, and he's not even going to be on the ticket, she said. Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have that sense, but it's baseless, so we all need to stop thinking that, right? A father filmed a racist encounter with a white woman who called him the N-word and phoned the police over a parking spot. Some of these white women need to calm the fuck down. I will admit that. However, there's also a lot of black people who need to calm the fuck down. The 34-year-old was picking up his children from his aunt's apartment complex when an elderly resident accosted him. Scientists say a new ocean will form in Africa as the continent continues to split into two. Really? That's the first I've heard of that. Researchers' new insight into the splitting process of the East Africa Rift systems show where an ocean will likely be formed if the continent's split continues. Fascinating. Lisa Rinna admits she should have warned Denise Richards about the Brandi Glanville affair claim. What? I should have sent a text. I didn't, and I think that's where I feel really bad because you would have warned me, Lisa Rinna told Denise Richards on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Okay. Because that's something I care about. Featured, protect your devices and data from cybercriminals. Get powerful protection against viruses, malware, and other online threats with Yahoo Protect Premium. Plus, you get 24/7 live help anytime you need it. Try it today, risk-free. Will it protect you from China? Consolidate your credit card debt on Yahoo Search with the help of Yahoo Search. And SBA loans with the help of Yahoo Search. Trending now is Elizabeth Berkley, whoever that is, Kelly Riley, whoever that is, coronavirus, Sumner Redstone, Lauren Silverman, home refinancing calculator, Michael Douglas, Dell refurbished laptops, derecho storms, I believe that means right, doesn't it? Right storms? 2020 XT4 SUV. Alrighty. Last of all is 1440 in partnership with Policy Genius. Good morning, it's Thursday, August 13th, and astronomers have found a very, very, very distant galaxy that resembles ours. Interesting. Need to know. Lockdown returns to New Zealand. After 4 new cases, when there had been 0 for months, New Zealand placed its largest city under lockdown yesterday after the country confirmed its first outbreak of the coronavirus in more than 100 days. At least 4 members of a family in Auckland have tested positive, with 2 of the patients having recently traveled to a tourist destination 100 miles away, expanding the geographical scope of a potential outbreak. So this is a potential outbreak, but above you referred to it as its first outbreak in more than 100 days. I'm pretty sure 4 people do not an outbreak constitute. Schools, businesses, and restaurants were abruptly closed in the city of 1.7 million because of four people in the same family. New Zealand has been lauded for its aggressive approach to containing the virus early in the panic, having reported just over 1,500 total cases and only 22 deaths to date. Officials are investigating whether the virus arrived via refrigerated freight. Meanwhile, in the U.S., biotech firm Moderna signed a $1.5 billion deal with the government to deliver 100 million doses of a potential vaccine, assuming the drugs are proven safe and effective. Moderna partnered with the National Institutes of Health to develop the vaccine and already received $900 million in federal funding. The U.S. has reported nearly 5.2 million total coronavirus cases, allegedly, as of this morning, with 166,027 deaths. Alleged deaths. See how your state is doing here. Finally, did you see the report that net gaiters are worse than nothing at stopping the coronavirus? Not so fast. Aha. A galaxy far, far away. Astronomers have identified the most distant Milky Way-like galaxy ever observed, according to research released yesterday. Because it is located roughly 12 billion light-years away, the light reaching Earth provides a view of what the galaxy looked like 12 billion years ago, or when the universe was just 10% of its current age. To even spot the galaxy, an effect known as gravitational lensing, where an in-between galaxy acts as a magnifying glass, was required. That's cool. Prevailing theories suggest young, star-forming galaxies are chaotic and unstable, having been created by supernova explosions and the merger of other galaxies. Surprisingly, the new galaxy, formerly named SPT 0418-47, catchy, appears calm and well-ordered, despite its young age, and has the Milky Way's disk and bulge structure. That sounds dirty. The findings will shape scientists' understanding of how galaxies form and evolve. For fun, check out one of our favorite visualizations on the size of space. Big 12 stays the course. The Big 12 Conference announced yesterday it will continue with plans to hold a fall athletic season, including college football, despite coronavirus fears. The surprising decision comes one day after 2 other Power 5 conferences, the Big 10 and Pac-12, said they would cancel the fall season. The final 2, the ACC and SEC, have yet to announce any changes. Big 12 officials have built-in time to reassess the situation, releasing an updated football schedule that has conference play beginning September 26th, with teams playing a single non-conference game beforehand. College football is the primary moneymaker for the athletic departments at the 64-65, if you count unaligned Notre Dame, Power 5 schools. Some analyses estimate the schools would lose $1.2 billion on ticketing revenues alone. At Big 12 powerhouse Texas, football revenue supports nearly 75% of the athletic department budget. Some are pushing for football season to begin in January, though the proposal faces many challenges. Be the early bird with Policy Genius. The early bird gets the worm, and the early life insurance shopper gets the cheapest rates. That's got a nice ring to it. No, it doesn't. Did you know that as you age, life insurance rates increase? No one knows what the future holds, so buying coverage now can help you support loved ones who depend on you. Policy Genius is designed to save you big on life insurance. They help you shop or reshop for the best rates on the market. Just tell them a little bit about yourself and they'll calculate your personalized life insurance quotes from top companies all in one place. You could save a lot of money. Compare quotes for up to 40% in savings, and more importantly, a lot of time. They handle the paperwork and red tape at no extra cost, subject to eligibility. Head over to Policy Genius today. It's totally free to apply, so you have nothing to lose. See how much you can save on life insurance today. Please support our sponsors. In the know. Sports, entertainment, and culture. Brought to you by Canvas People. People made of canvas? How strange. Several newspapers owned by Tribune Publishing, including New York City's Daily News, will close newsrooms permanently. Princess Diana musical will be first ever to premiere on Netflix before opening on Broadway. Sumner Redstone, media tycoon. That's a name. Okay. Media tycoon whose vast entertainment empire included Viacom CBS and Paramount Pictures dies at 97. Golf's Masters Tournament, rescheduled from April to November, will be held without fans or guests. Shocker. Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones says fans will be able to attend games in person this year. In some setting called pods. Which sounds pretty fun, I suppose. I bet it'll be super expensive, though. Weddings, graduations, vacations. We've taken some excellent photos over the years. Pat's own back. And now we've discovered a way to bring beautiful photos from the camera roll to the living room. Canvas People prints your favorite images onto high-quality canvases. And today only, they're giving 1440 readers one free 11 by 14 canvas print, over $80 in value. Just pay shipping and handling. Create yours now. Well, we're too late for that one. Sorry. Science and technology. Researchers link the decreased production of a liver protein known as relin to the mitigation or even elimination of some multiple sclerosis-like symptoms in mice. Decreased production, so you want less of that. Weird. I wonder what it's supposed to do. New crystal-filled inks shown to suppress the coffee ring effect, where inks dry quicker at the edges than the center of a pattern. Solving the problem is key to advancing 2D printable electronic circuits. Electron microscopy of a common razor blade in action reveals how single hairs can deform steel, providing insight into how steel fractures at a microscopic level. Business and markets. United Kingdom sees 20.4% drop in quarterly economic activity, the largest decline among the world's top economies and worst drop since UK record-keeping began in 1955. U.S. consumer prices. I'll bet the EU is gloating. Not that they're probably doing much better. U.S. consumer prices increased by 0.6% in July, matching June's increase as states eased panic lockdowns. Brooks Brothers to be acquired for $325 million by partnership between apparel company Authentic Brands and mall owner Simon Property Group. Team has previously purchased other brands such as Aeropostale and Juicy Couture. Politics and world affairs. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris make first appearance together since Harris was named to the Democratic presidential ticket. 538 releases first 2020 election forecast. Biden holds big lead, but uncertainty in projection is large at this stage. Bullet hits a U.S. Air Force helicopter while flying over Virginia, injuring one. FBI and military investigating. Belarus authorities detain at least 6,000 as protests over election fraud sweep country. Government claims authoritarian President Alexander Lukashenko won 80% of the vote in Sunday election. Unlike here, I'll bet you those 6,000 don't just get released. In depth. Abolish the police? From New York Times. For more than 3 weeks in June, Seattle protesters established a self-declared autonomous zone, including shutting down an entire police precinct. Absent law enforcement, some residents and business owners, many sympathetic to the protesters, say the rosy picture painted by city officials did not match reality. Is the New York Times going to tell the truth? Editor's note. To clarify, calls to defund the police do not mean abolishing the police, though some have called for the latter. See an overview here. It's basically the same. Basically. The ones saying defund instead of abolish are just the ones that have a little tact. The Fallacy of Banking Umbilical Cord Blood. Really? From MIT Press Reader. Many soon-to-be parents are paying to store their newborn's umbilical cord blood, rich in stem cells that may potentially be used to treat future diseases. But critics argue a number of companies are simply preying on parental fear with greatly exaggerated promises. I didn't know that there was any critique of that. That's interesting to know. I've never done it myself. No red tape in partnership with Policy Genius. There's no worse feeling than getting to the finish line of a big partnership or purchase only to find a stack full of legal papers that need signing and close reading. Policy Genius gets it. They do all the work for you. I had to sneeze. They do all of the work for you, from shopping and reshopping to paperwork and red tape. Compare to save up to 40% on your life insurance plan from top companies and get covered in just a few days with no hassle, subject to eligibility. Apply now, risk-free. Please support our sponsors. Etc. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson leads the highest-paid actors of 2020. Oh, good for him. Working moms are carrying the burden of virtual schooling. Well, that makes sense. The world's largest reindeer herd is under attack. From whom? The 100 best TV characters of the century so far. Artist spends 113 days chronicling quarantine through wall doodles. The future of television is see-through. Paleontologists may have found a Tyrannosaurus rex relative. Apple is worried you'll mistake it for a pear. What? Clickbait. Man sets record for lighting matches with nunchucks. Oh, that sounds cool. History book. Sharpshooter Annie Oakley born, 1860. Fidel Castro born, 1926. Construction of the Berlin Wall begins, 1961. Rest in peace baseball great Mickey Mantle, 1995. Rest in peace celebrity chef Julia Child, 2004. Rest in peace, Julia Child. If I knew I was going to live this long, I'd have taken better care of myself, Mickey Mantle. I think I've heard that quote before. That's all for 1440. Thank you, and good night.